backing down from the attempt to do a revaluation of people's properties in the city. That would have resulted in higher taxes paid by the citizens of Georgetown. And I'm pleased that this happened, that he obviously spoke with his political masters at Congress Place, and they told him that since the plot to create dissatisfaction was exposed by the PPP, that we have no choice but to back down now. And there was that plot to do that, because when people's rates go up, they don't care who runs the city council. They blame the government for it, and we are the government now. And they were hoping that that would lead to mass dissatisfaction in the city. You recall the same sort of thing they did around local government elections. A lot of rumors, and I anticipate in Georgetown, new set of rumors soon as we get closer to the elections. The rumors in Georgetown were that we will raise people's rates if we won the elections, rates and taxes. Two, that we were building the boulevard because we wanted to sell out people's property on the boulevard in Georgetown. Three, that we'll remove all the vendors from the roadside. The people wouldn't be able to sell anymore. We'll remove all the people who are squatting, along the banks of the canals, etc. We've now had to buy the amphibious excavators to go in the canal simply because we didn't want to disrupt people's properties. But a bunch of rumors apart from the racism that they spread at local government election. So I anticipate soon that they're going to be doing this. I saw something, and they're doing colorful little bits of things. So don't believe PPP lies. Safe City, that this is what APNU did. Now that they brought in the National Broadband Project. Now that project was a project that the PPP left in office, the broadband project. It was a project that we left when we left government. We also left from the LCDS funds 17.2 million United States dollars to do a project for hinterland connectivity and national connectivity outside of the project to put in cameras around the whole country. This is, and they claim that too. They have nothing to claim as original. So they claim that now, that they were the ones talking about Safe City. And we will get a lot more of this sort of thing in the future. So you can't believe anything that APNU and AFC has been saying. I saw Nigel Hughes going on the ground suddenly in Berbice after they were the ones leading the charge in decimating the agriculture sector, in destroying the sugar industry, in making it clear that those people did not matter. People who live in Blackbush Polder, if you talk to them now, I see everybody showing up in Blackbush Polder. In opposition, when we were in opposition, we were there all the time. When they were in government, they never showed up. When we came into government, we showed up in the area. The grounds are being fixed in Blackbush Polder. They're getting lights there. Hundreds of roads in the area, concrete roads in the area. We're improving the main road. We've spent millions of dollars on farm-to-market roads in the area, as well as drainage and irrigation. We have worked with the farmers. In the flood, when they had floods across the country, they got compensated for flood. They wouldn't have even seen APNU, much less get compensated for flood and get some help. They got fertilizer help, free fertilizer, seed paddy sometimes help. We've worked to open up new markets abroad, and the price of paddy went from $2,100 per bag to now $4,000 per bag, because we were concerned about the residents there. And it's not a short-term concern. So you think these fly-by-night political leaders would pop down from time to time and meet somebody who's always dissatisfied? You always find some man in some community who would just, in fact, many of them dupe the people who go there. They like to get their couple of minutes of fame. But you'd always find that in every community, a couple of people who never satisfied with anything. But you just look throughout the period, when people have to choose a government, they don't choose a government based on the fringes. They assess who will benefit them or who will institute policies that will benefit them in the long run, and who is capable of doing that. The capacity is important. So when I saw Nigel Hughes, suddenly he and Ramjatan went to Blackbush Polder, I was thinking, imagine how shameless these people are. Because Ramjatan sought to even represent sugar workers now. The people who devastated the sugar industry until now don't want us to spend any money on sugar, who sent home 7,000 workers, who didn't give them a salary increase for any of the 5 years, although they promised them 20%. Promised massive $9,000 a bag for paddy, came down to $2,000. So you have to be extraordinarily shameless to show up and with a straight face talk to people in these communities about your care and concern and about development, and mutter about policies because they don't have policies. One examination of their presentation in Parliament or when they go to a press conference would nullify, negate all of the lies that they tell on the ground, because their positions are so far apart. What they say when they go to the communities and what they actually do when they're in government or have to speak about it at a national forum. And they consistently, APNU and all of the others, they've harassed people doing agriculture. First, because they thought maybe it's the PPP base, but now you have people of every race in agriculture across the country. That's what we're doing it. But they have a mindset against agriculture because they think it's a rural activity. So I find it very strange that they would actually do this. The opposition parties now are doing practically nothing in the country, absolutely nothing, but just opportunistically trying to complain. Oh, this road wasn't done well, but never mind, we did 7,000 roads already. This road wasn't done well. Nobody will pay serious attention to them. So let me tell you what on there. I see a lot of them going to the rice industry too. And I'll come back to Mr. Mohammed because he has been doing this too. And I'll speak about him a little bit later in my press conference. But the opportunism is palpable. It's so blatant that only a person who's blinkered would not see the opportunism of these individuals. They have no concern whatsoever for the farmers, but they think they can go down and, because we're approaching election, and dupe them. So we always had this phenomenon. Valda Lawrence knew that we were going to upgrade the Repentera Cemetery in Georgetown. Our plans were there. We decided to fix all the roads through the cemetery, put up lights, upgrade, because we want to change the whole area. People can go visit the cemetery, etc. It's in a bad shape. She then moves to put a motion in Parliament so that people would think that when we move to do this road, the roads in the cemetery, that it was Valda Lawrence who caused us to do the roads. It's opportunism. They see it all the time. They know, for example, I see them putting up another motion in Parliament, the PNC, to ask the commissioner to enforce the law where people are using sirens on private vehicles, on the flashing lights. Now that they know President Ali has given instructions already, it's illegal. It's illegal. You don't need to go with a motion to Parliament to do that. You just need to call on the commissioner to do it, because the president has instructed him that these people are abusing the siren, etc. They're installing it privately on private vehicles. It's abusive. I have the siren, and many times I don't use it except when you come to traffic lights and stuff. Some of these people, private vehicles just blaze through all the time, everywhere. It's ridiculous. It's causing discomfort and anger among people. But they put a motion. They know already our public position is this is illegal. It should not happen. The police need to enforce it. So they do this opportunistically. So then they see the budget. They see we have budgeted for different things. They go to the community again and say, oh, we're lobbying for your road to be done. We're lobbying for this community center to be built. They know the budget profile already has money for that. But of course, we have not gone to the community as yet to start the work, because once the money is budgeted, you have to do designs and tender and stuff like that. The people, the residents in the villages don't know that. But they're going there to say, we're lobbying for this. So when it comes, they say, we lobbied for it, you got it. It's blatant, it's opportunistic, and it's happening again. So this thing with the rice farmers, I see some clowns running around saying, oh, they're supporting the rice farmers. So, one, where were they last year? When last year we had a similar situation where the rice prices were lower than what the millers ultimately paid. And last year, what did we do? We gave up the commissioner GRDB to get the rice prices up to $4,000 per bag. That is for a bag of paddy. That was done last year. But last year was not close to election, so they didn't need to go and talk to the farmers. This year, the international prices came down. The millers said they would pay between $3,500 to $3,700 a bag per paddy. The yields were higher this year, though. Over 9 million bags of paddy. High yields this year, and that's great. And it reflects a lot of the support we're giving to the industry and the new varieties and all of that. So big supply response. People are getting more paddy. The price came down this year, so the millers said they'll do that. The President Ali had 2 meetings for the millers. Before him, Minister Zulfikar Mohammed had had several meetings with the millers and farmers, but we don't necessarily publicize, but we already said to the farmers, we're working on this. Weeks ago, I came to the very press conference and said, we're working to get the price up, that we're concerned about it. I see people claiming now that the government only acted because especially this Azruddin Mohammed, I saw him claiming today, that the government acted only because of him. Now this guy, you got to be delusional and deranged to think that's the case. You have to be utterly delusional and deranged. But again, it fits in with the opportunism that we have seen in the past. And preying on the same farmers. Now people complain, every time we go to community meetings, people complain about issues, water issues, etc. We listen to them, we fix it. But if you think that the rice farmers of the country don't know which government supports them, as the miners now know, because APNU told them that they were going to support them and then shafted them. The miners already know this now, and the sugar workers know this, and the public servants know this, and the joint services know this too, because we didn't take away their 1-month tax-free bonus, we gave them back the 1-month tax-free bonus, and the pensioners know this too, when we double the pension. You think people don't know? You're gonna just go around to a meeting and mumble a couple of words, oh, this is high and low and how. No, you can't even string 2 coherent thoughts together and think that people accept the fringe that has always been PPP haters. I saw the meeting today in Essequibo. The man who was the AFC man that, you know, what they call him? I don't even know, some strip boxer or something like that, they call him like that. He showed up at the meeting, the known characters. The lady in Blackbush Polar said, oh, I only get flood relief for 4 acres or 5 acres. I collected a pittance. They collected $2 million, blatant lie. And they go on, but they can, if they want to con people, that's fine. You know, they go there and run con on some unsuspecting, stupid individuals who go and think that they know the rice farmers there. But it's the usual suspects. Show up at all these meetings. We've always faced that. They were with AFC. They migrated to some other party, but in significantly smaller numbers now. You recall how it used to be in the past. In 2015, when we went underground in Essequibo Coast, they bought into all the AFC lies. And a mass number of people, I had one meeting, I had not even decided to join back the campaign as yet because I'd left office. And we had a massive meeting on the lawns of the State House there. Frank Anthony, I think, was with me. And people said they're not going to support the PPP because they were lied to by APNU that the Petro-Caribbean deal, that the money was being kept by the government and was not being passed on to the farmers, and that they will pass it on and give them $9,000 a bag for paddy. Lied to them, people believe. We had mass uprising on Essequibo Coast on that. To see a couple of people go up, and because some of them think they can get a small freck, that's fine. Fine. So they think they can. It's very different now, and that they're making a big political impact because you can post a couple of images on Facebook. So we have confronted people who try to mislead farmers for political gain before. We've confronted that, but the support to the industry is a vital one. Now, For several months, I've been asked here by various persons. Last week, it was Dennis Chabrol, what I think about the Mohammeds. And I made it clear at that time that I do not want to comment on private individuals unless they get political and they criticize the People's Progressive Party. My job as General Secretary of the party, it is to ensure that we present to the nation the most advanced plans for their development. That is why we always have such an inclusive way of developing our manifesto. Our manifesto in 2020 was done based on work among people. We had a meeting, a big consultations, apart from several others, with different interest groups, but a big one at I think it was at the New Thriving restaurant on the East Bank. President Ali spoke, I spoke, and then we had major contribution from the floor about what we should focus on. When we completed that process of engaging people, we came back to the drawing boards. We look at the financial implication of the promises, because we had the experience of being in government. You can't just, like APNU, promise things and you can't deliver. Like they're promising now to share out twice as much as we're collecting from the oil and gas sector. Everybody knows it's lunacy. So we put it through a framework, did the testing, and we launched the manifesto. The manifesto was about creating more jobs for people, which we have done. More people are working today than ever before, and this, you don't need to be pro-PPP to accept that fact, that more people today have jobs than had jobs in 2020 or any period in the APNU government. We didn't send home people en masse like they did. We didn't put in place policies that led to cutting output and employment in mining or forestry or agriculture. They've all expanded under the PPP. We had a pro-job policy, and the budget has supported this, and it has yielded results. We said we want to make sure that people have the best education in the world. We made some promises. We're fulfilling those promises. Free education, spending more on our children. Same thing with healthcare. That's why we're building all the new hospitals. We thought everything out before we put it in a document called a manifesto and offered it to the people of the country. The PPP did that. That's how we approach people's lives, and we take it seriously as a major political party. Second, so the PPP also has to ensure that we just don't make a promise, that we deliver on the promise. That's the role of the PPP. And then thirdly, it is to make sure that people do not criticize us unfairly. Criticism is fine. I encourage it. Last week I spoke of people posting civil works that's not done up to standard on social media to bring it to our attention. Which government would want to do that? Because I said, if you see a road in your community that's not being done properly, and we're paying for this to be done, post it on social media, and then let's pay attention to it. We'll pay attention to it. Which government does that sort of thing? But we want to encompass and co-opt people to be our eyes and ears on the ground, because We cannot have oversight in every community, and many times the contractors or the engineers may be delinquent. That's the approach we've taken to governance. So we're not immune from criticism, or we're not hostile to people who criticize or what may be perceived as criticism, because many of them are PPP supporters, die hard, but they're concerned about the road, and that's rightfully so, rightfully so. So we're not saying we should not be criticized, but people who criticize unfairly, my job, us unfairly, especially people who are crooked and people who have no past of achievement or working for people, we take umbrage at that and we'll defend ourselves. We're not a eunuch-based party. We're a party that has strong credentials for fighting for people, etc. So we will respond to people when they come after us unfairly. So in that context, I had stayed away from the Mohammeds totally because they were not identifying the PPP, nor they say anything that I perceive, although they may have been doing it privately, as political. And I made it clear that in this country, where PPP will always defend the right for people to freely express themselves, to freely form whatever organization you wish. We will support the free media, even if we don't accept, like a Kaichor News, that they would be reflective of the truth, but we support their right to exist because we are a free country. That's the ethos that we come from. That's the philosophy that we would always carry. But that doesn't mean that we are not going to defend ourselves. So I saw Mr. Nazar Mohammed making a number of statements, or a statement recently that seeks to create the impression that he is either a victim of PPP excesses or to justify the course of action that they have taken. So, first of all, I'm going to go through this based on issues that were raised by Mr. Mohammed in his statement, one issue at a time. So the first said that myself, Nazar Mohammed, and my son, Azruddin Mohammed, along with our two companies, have been sanctioned by OFAC. OFAC is an arm, the financial arm of the American government. And I've been very silent on this. And then he goes on to say that this has affected his company. Now, clearly, this is a major issue. To be sanctioned by the United States government, it has to be a major issue. Mr. Mohammed did not say a single word about the sanctions, whether he believes that they were justified or not. and the veracity of the claim made by the United States government. The United States government said that Mr. Mohammed and Team Mohammed and Azruddin Mohammed and their companies exported 10,000 kilograms, smuggled 10,000 kilograms of gold out of Guyana and evaded over 50 million US in taxes. That was just one of the accusations. Let's forget all of the other accusations against the Mohammed, which resulted in the sanctions. So, Mr. Nazar Mohammed never said a word about that. When the United States ambassador was asked in Guyana by the media about this sanction, she said that the sanction was a result of several years of in-depth investigations into the Mohammeds, and it was supported by a mountain of evidence. You go back and read the newspapers. Supported by a mountain of evidence, and it was, for several years, a multi-year investigation. So first of all, Mr. Mohammed doesn't say anything about that, about the allegations of the US government. Instead, somewhere in his letter, in his statement, he talks about, this is what he said: there is this Guyanese businessman who's been buying gold from Venezuelan men dressed in military uniform. 99.9% of the gold exported returned the money to a Citibank, billions of US dollars within a 4-year span, almost put the country's financial system in crisis, and nothing has been done about that. So, instead of answering why he was sanctioned and the US government allegation, not allegation, they said that they have evidence to support it, the claim that he evaded 50 million US dollars of taxes and smuggled all this gold. 50 million US dollars of taxes evaded, it's $11 billion, nearly, over $10 billion, nearly $11 billion of taxes. Not a single word about that. Instead, he pivots to another businessman. He claims buying gold from Venezuelans now and exporting the gold, and nothing was done about it. If he knows this, he should share it with the US government and make it public. We would be very interested in finding out who this businessman is. He shouldn't go public with this record. There's nothing to hide here. If he has all of the details about how much gold was bought and who bought they bought the gold from, particularly Venezuelans now, because that could open us up to sanctions, because Venezuela is a sanctioned country. Then he should disclose this now and send it to the US government, or give it to the authorities, or don't give it if he thinks there's a conspiracy. Put it in the public domain. Call Kaichor News and give them. So that was the first issue. So we still have this question with the sanction. He was sanctioned for a particular reason. He never said a word about the sanction. Just, the US sanctioned me, fine. Then he speaks about the consequences of the sanction. So I think he took umbrage to us saying that a number of people had lost their visas because of connection with Azruddin Mohammed, or companies associated with Azruddin Mohammed, because they're all sanctioned, including Team Mohammed is a sanctioned U.S. entity, a U.S. sanctioned entity. So he claims that he knows of people who are close to the PPP administration who may have lost their visas for whatever reason. So again, I will urge him to make public all of the names of the people close to the People's Progressive Party or the administration who have lost their visas, apart from those who lost visas because of Azruddin Mohammed association with him. So he's free to do that too. And I hope he does this. But it's a gross misrepresentation to claim, as he did, that it's only American companies that could face sanctions if they associate with the Mohammeds. It not only misrepresents it, but the facts are so evident because they are in the release issued by the United States government when he was sanctioned. They were sanctioned. So what did they say? If you look at sanction implications, it speaks about U.S. prohibit all transaction by U.S. persons or within or transiting. Look at the word there, or transiting the United States of America. So if you are a non-U.S. citizen, but you transit the U.S., you go to the U.S. on vacation, or you transit the U.S., you are subjected to sanctions too. It's here, it's evident, very clear as daylight. He was misleading people. And further, after speaking extensively about U.S. nationals, it speaks about, this is a paragraph that would be clear to anyone in Guyana who could read and understand, and most of our people can read and understand. It says, in addition, financial institutions and other persons that engage in certain transactions or activities with the sanctioned entities and individuals may expose themselves to sanctions or be subject to an enforcement action. Not just sanctions, you can be subject to enforcement action. The prohibitions include the making of any contribution or provision of funds, goods or services by, to, or for the benefit of any designated person, or the receipt of any contribution or provision of funds, goods or services from any such person. So if you receive a contribution from the Mohammeds, you can be sanctioned here too. This is clear as daylight, and it speaks about any person, not U.S. nationals here. So it was very misleading to claim that it was the sanctions were only against him and he could not do business, or the family, and they could not do business with U.S. entities. Basically, it put at the sanctions put at risk anyone or any institution anywhere in the world, including in Guyana, of being sanctioned themselves or being subjected to an enforcement action if they do business with the Mohammeds or receive a contribution from the Mohammeds. That is, if they make any payment to the Mohammeds or they receive any payments for the Mohammed. So, who lost their visas? Now, he said that Daily News and Critic are surrogates of the PPP. Now, we don't control the Daily News. We don't control Critic. So let me make that clear. They're not surrogates of the PPP. The PPP, if you want to hear our position on a matter, you come here, I speak about it, you ask me. I don't hide behind people to talk about our positions or news entity. Which are the surrogates of the Mohammeds? Because I know for sure that they're paying large numbers of people to carry the message, including social media influencers. So who are their surrogates? What about their surrogates? He's talking about PPP surrogates. We don't deal with we deal with these organizations the same way that we deal with anyone else. But you don't need a third party to hear our views. You hear our views directly from us. So he claimed that they've been saying a number of people lost their visas because of association with them. And he claimed that it's PPP because of association with the administration, Irfan Ali's administration. So let me tell you about my personal experience. And the president can tell you the same, and many of the people. I've had entertainers who complained to me. They were called, when they traveled to the United States, they were taken to secondary and questioned for hours about the connection with the Mohammeds. Entertainers, because somewhere they received some maybe contribution from them. I've had people complain who are religious leaders who lost their visas because, and they're questioned in the United States of America. Some of them were transiting there. They couldn't transit back because, and they were questioned only about their association with the Mohammeds. You had mechanics, you had purchasers, you had a ton of people who have either been questioned or lost their visas because of association and when they go into the US government. So that's why I said a couple of weeks ago that numerous people, when asked by the media. So notice, none of that, but it's, oh, people are losing their visas because of the association with government. This is obfuscating the issue. This is sidetracking the main issue. That is why in this statement that he made, he had to start with the false premise that only US entities could be sanctioned. You know, Guyanese could be sanctioned because of the association with the Mohammeds, when people are actually quietly bearing a lot of suffering and pain because they don't want to go public. No, it's a stigma, the shame. They don't want to go, they lost their visas, and they don't want people to know. And so, it sets up the third point in his statement. He said that he's been treated badly by all of the entities. He lost his cambio license, his mining permit was canceled by the government. Now the vessels these foreign vessels owned by the Mohammeds doesn't get permission for the cabotage any longer. and just somehow makes this into a conspiracy. He's been treated badly. I have constitutional rights here in Guyana. I'm treated badly by this administration. Now, clearly, this Mr. Mohammed believes that, falsely so, that the PPP, out of some perceived loyalty to him and Azruddin Mohammed, will put at risk the future and the interests of all the people of this country for them, because somehow, somewhere in the past, he played marble with Chedi Jagan. I was with Chedi Jagan one time when we put in place the BAS, anti-smuggling squad. We had just got into office, and I was in the Ministry of Finance. And smuggling was unbelievable, and on the invoicing. Early days of the PPP government. Remember, at that time, over 90% in actual sense of revenue was used to service debt. We needed revenue badly to fix education, healthcare, etc. And the people, some guys from Berbice who might have been engaged in the practice invited Chedi Jagan to a meeting that was held in Skeldon in the Gaisuko compound. And so I went with him, and they were saying, Jagdeo is harassing us and all of that because of the BAS anti-smuggling squad. And Chedi Jagan said, I'm grateful for your support. You've supported us well, but if you think I'll come into government to tolerate illegality, because, and I will, and I'm paraphrasing, betray the interests of all the people who rely on the PPP, then you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. So, a lot of those people who claim Chedi Jagan now, you notice it's always the crooks who always say something. Moses Nagamutu used to say that he was the blue-eyed boy for Chedi Jagan. A blatant lie. Janet Jagan pointed this out. Chedi Jagan said, carried him up in some mountain in Region 9 and whispered to him that he'd be the next presidential candidate of the PPP. A blatant lie. Ramjatan loved Chedi Jagan after they both tried to destroy Chedi Jagan party and link up with the PNC and AFC. Destroy his party. Now I see this again. This is almost a precursor to everything. Everybody who wants to say anything about the PPP, who's trying to shaft the PPP, comes, oh, I played marble with Chedi Jagan, I knew Chedi Jagan, helped to put him in office. I was here at Freedom House in 1992. Mr. Mohammed spoke about that. I was here. In the elections, I didn't go home for days. I can tell you some stories. People's socks were so smelly that they were sticking to the floor because sweaty. And I want to tell you who. One of the persons. When Freedom House was attacked on that day, we were the ones downstairs trying to defend it. There was a stage right there, and we lined up some bats there. That's all we had here to defend Freedom House. Miles Fitzpatrick came here, and when he was attacked by the mob, we managed to squeeze him into Freedom House, and he said, I can't believe this is the second time in my life I'm seeking refuge at Freedom House. They talk about that as though we are somehow dear the conscience of Chedi Jagan. This party is not, and we are not. I was Chedi Jagan finance minister. I was Chedi Jagan's finance minister. He had confidence in us, many of the young leaders, to put us there. But everybody claims him just when they want to come after the PPP, as though we are betraying Chedi Jagan's legacy. And they're the ones upholding Chedi Jagan's legacy. So I don't pay too much attention to that, about this thing. So we are never going to put, coming back to the core point, we're never going to put the interests of a single individual, particularly if you're accused of doing something so illegal that you bring sanctions of the United States government down on your own head, we must put the country at risk. So he laments about his cambio license. We could shut down the entire financial system if the Mohammeds had continued owning a cambio license. The banks all cut ties. Just imagine our banks. If they were continue allowing the Mohammeds to have an account or do business with them, they could be subjected to US sanctions. They would, you know what that means? Losing any connection with the American financial system, losing correspondent banking relations. You can't set up an LC, you can't transfer funds. You can't, when you use your debit card to buy overseas or your credit card, you can't complete the transaction because your financial system comes under sanction. Should we continue giving him his cambio license so that the whole country, every individual would suffer and you crash our financial system? But somehow he feels, oh, he's entitled to it. That's one. I can go on here. The same thing with any payment to the government. The government cannot do business with the Mohammeds. It exposes us to the risk of sanctions. Not because we are vindictive or we hate them, but they're the ones who got sanctioned because of the investigation. These are the consequences of the sanction. But they want us to defy the United States government sanction and risk the lives and livelihoods of our people, all of them, in Guyana. So that is why we have had to disengage. And people, everybody, the banks disengage, and most people disengage too. Now, he dealt with a lot of conjecture. This is why, and he linked it all to the PPP Irfan Ali administration about somehow we got somebody that we had a plan to very close to this, people close to the administration to accuse his son of rape and all of that. Now, the PPP doesn't engage in that sort of thing. Even when Vanessa Kisoon accused Norton, I said, we're not going to make it a political issue because it's not credible. Why you waited 10 years and only when the man is running for the leadership to do that? We don't engage in baby politics, that kind of thing. But if people do that, it's not the People's Progressive Party. But he should look closer to his own son too. And then, if his son wants to go into politics, his son is free to go into politics. We don't have a problem with him going into politics. But, as I mentioned before, you can't come after us politically, verbally, without us responding in kind, verbally. And so, let me tell you the thinking. So what I've heard, since he heard a lot of things, and he spoke about what he heard from people, etc. I've heard that they were advised that if you run for government, the United States government will drop the sanctions on you because they would think you're a political opponent and therefore you may get the sanctions dropped. Two, We've seen this all the time. Remember when C.N. Sharma got into trouble? He claimed he had trouble of a different nature with the law. He didn't claim, oh, because I'm running against the government. So, any trouble now, they would try to make all of this seem as though because they're getting into politics, that the PPP is upset with them. No, the PPP, we didn't impose the sanctions. The whole worry started with the sanctions. Not the PPP taking actions against them, but the actions were a consequence of the sanctions. Consequence of the sanctions. So, this is the thinking, I think. Oh, if we run, the US government may drop the case against us. Secondly, that we can always claim that any enforcement action which the PPP would do, because the US has asked for additional stuff, significant amount of additional stuff, that could see more serious enforcement action against them, they can claim, oh, it's because we're political opponents of the PPP. Let me say something. We have seen all sorts come and go. So people believe because they have a social media following that they can even write and post on. You got to get other people to do that. That translates into political support. We've seen the Sharma phenomenon, etc. You've got to be extremely delusional to think that what people say to you because you're sharing out some money on the ground, that would translate into votes. And by the way, about sharing out money, I hear a lot about this. If you evade, as the American government claimed, $11 billion in taxes, you could easily spend $200 million or $300 million on giving it out. You still have $10 billion of evaded taxes, and give it to a couple of people, 100,000 here, or build a small house for them. So what's this big deal? And is it done as a cover to ensure that there is no strong enforcement action? Because it gets magnified. One house, 20 people say, oh, he's building more houses than the government. Somebody said that. One of their fictitious people they put there. And then it's not true. But you know how social media is and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the people will fool him. But if you're evading on one instance $11 billion of taxes, that's a good business to be in. Evade 11 billion, as the US government said, and then spend $200-300 million on handing out. Who operated like that? It's the Pablo Escobars of the world. They give out some stuff like that. But let's go on. So I don't have any doubt that at some point in time he'd find common cause with the PNC. This is the same PNC APNU playbook. Because Mr. Mohammed himself said he used to make financial contributions to all the political parties, supported the PPP, but he made financial contributions to the others. I know they've been having links and talks. So ultimately, this would happen. They start off as independent, but in the back room, they get support, because somehow APNU believes wrongly, they've always miscalculated, that he's going to make a difference on the ground. On the ground, it's different. So, and I tell you why. So let me just say, I've seen people with political character. And since today, So the reason I'm taking him on today, because he went political today for the first time in a meeting in Essequibo. It was sent to me just now, where he accused some government officials of corruption and basically claiming that the PPP doesn't have any policy for the farmers. And he's worried about me ranting at my press conference. So I just want to say to him, it takes brains sometimes to rant. So let me tell you my own characterization of people. Characters are important in politics. So you know the Amerindian community suffered enormously under APNU. They withdrew tons of support, fired people, etc. Pure assault on the Amerindian community. No movement forward. Stopped the land titling activity. Nearly 2,000 CSOs cut their budget. No assistance whatsoever. You know the same thing happened with the rice industry. So the rice farmers were told this was a private sector activity, no help from the government. So I have seen who stood up in that period for the Amerindians and the rice farmers in the 5 years. All of these people were missing. It was the People's Progressive Party. And I started off by telling you about one party that can fight off APNU and the others, because they come heavily sometimes, using the army, the police, etc. They planted special branch in my office. That's the kind of assault. But because of we're battle hardened against them. So I have met Azruddin Mohammed on a few occasions. And I think he is a wannabe gangster who can't string two coherent thoughts together. And if he had to confront APNU, he would shit a bucket load. That's my characterization, and I will say that publicly. You can't just, and he talked about ranting at press conferences. You put him, let him have a press conference. Don't rant, just talk policy. Put him there, can't mumble 2 words. You think about, imagine how incredibly stupid he is. He evaded the taxes on vehicles and then went and posted how much he paid. The act of arrogance, 98 million, when he is supposed to pay like $400 million. Now when GRA says, hold on a minute, we saw what you posted, and they go after him for the additional taxes, he thinks it's a conspiracy. It's an act of phenomenal stupidity that could only come from a mind like his. And so it's always, I've seen him talk disparagingly about Zulfikar Mustafa. Saying Zulfikar Mustafa, the executive secretary of the party, implying he's corrupt today at the meeting. And talking about he has a constitutional duty to listen. Now, two persons went to the meeting. Mustafa has been working his ass off to help the farmers for many, many years. Where was this guy? Busy evading taxes. For years, going down underground, meeting with them, trying to get them to better, more water, helping, even now, for months working to get higher prices for the rice farmers. And you disparage him about a constitutional duty to listen to people? Zulfikar can speak about policies. He does that on every area. Compare the two. What about his constitutional duty not to smuggle gold, as the US is saying? So he talks about constitutional duty of Mustafa. Can you compare an Irfan Ali, who will be our candidate, with any of the others? Any of the others who are running? Irfan Ali is battle hardened. He was a minister before. He did a ton of work. He could speak about energy security or security, food security. He goes to the UN. He represents us, talks on the border issue. Complex thought process. He's educated. And you're going to compare him with anyone else? People who can't mumble two words coherently, but because they drive a fancy vehicle and just post picture. And with this thing here, even I'm tempted to like some of the thing because I don't know much about the vehicles, but there are lots of PPP people who would just go there for entertainment. It's like I said before, Taylor Swift got millions of people, maybe even more than President Trump. She said, vote for Kamala Harris. What happened? Nobody translates. There's a difference between entertainment and politics. People look at the lives of their children and stuff. So if you delude yourselves based on likes that you get, and you post a picture and dress up nicely or something like that, and call yourself fancy names, it's all entertainment. Entertainment. When you run country, it has to be about serious issues. I went through that at the beginning of my press conference. Our framework for analysis of policies, etc. So, when I see this, you're going to disparage people. Today he did that with the minister, and he crossed the threshold when he started disparaging the minister. You were talking about corruption in the government. The same thing APNU did in 2015. You were sanctioned for massive corruption. You were sanctioned for massive corruption. Look at the Reuters story. The Reuters story, they said there were two Reuters. U.S. probing Exxon contractor, that's the Mohammed, in Guyana for smuggling drugs and gold. This went international. This is a Reuters story. And you were talking, imagine the audacity of telling the farmers about the minister being corrupt today. The audacity of it. So, I said before, if you try to, there's space for everyone in this country. Space for everyone, even in the political environment. And people are free to run. But don't try to present false reasons. They're worried about the US sanction. They're hoping to get out of it. And they believe going into politics, like others, would shield them from maybe what's coming. But we didn't start this. We didn't do the 2.5 years or 3 years probe into them before the sanctions came. It was the US government, multi-agency US government, involving several levels of the US government. The ambassador said we have a mountain load of evidence against them. So to make it look like, oh, they're being subjected to some conspiracy, PPP conspiracy, is all nonsense. And so today is the first day I'm speaking about it. I'll have many more, much more to talk about on this matter, because he crossed a line today and he went after the Minister of Agriculture. A person who I know been working in the sector day and night. Day and night. Zulfikar Mustafa been working day and night to assist people. You go and tell the farmers, oh, he's corrupt. So, and that's it. He couldn't even mumble their thing properly. Talking about, oh, they export the rice as stupid. I wish you would have a press conference like the one I'm having, so you could answer all the allegations and rebut me, basically. I wish that would happen. It would never happen, because they've been shielded by a slew of people who prepare all these things and then post it for him. No original thought in there. Not a single original thought. And so I think I'd end here. Thank you.
Dr. Jagdeo, Cordell Jones from Livewire News. Since we're on the Mohammeds, is your party concerned about reports of what appeared to be support buying by Azzuddin Mohammed during his visit?
I forgot to mention one thing about the assassination. So the father said that somewhere he heard about some issue of that his son may be assassinated. This is like just to give him profile, as though the PPP sees him as a threat, implying like it's the PPP, but he left it deliberately vague. So he needs to go public to the father and say who is trying to assassinate his son. He needs to put it, send it to the police force, go and make a report now, so that there'd be a report as to who. But definitely not the PPP. That's not the way we work. His new partners, the PNC, that's the way they work. They killed Walter Rodney and the others. We don't work that way. We don't work that way. But he is free to do that. And I hope it's not coming from the other big people they're associating with. That may be where the biggest threat comes from. But I don't know. He has a duty to do to the public. His sympathy they're looking for, as though he poses a threat to the People's Progressive Party. We have fought off people who are smarter and more well-resourced than he has been. Smarter by a million miles. Yes, go on. What was it about? I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Dr. Jagdeo, was asking if your parties are concerned about reports of what appears to be support buying by Azzuddin Mohammed during a visit to various communities. There are reports that in Linden, recently persons were required to sign a book pledging their electoral support for Mr. Mohammed before receiving financial assistance. Is your party concerned about this type of practice and it undermining the democratic process?
Even if they got to pledge support and all of that, it might be illegal. But with all of that, it doesn't bother me. I know because you could easily in this country pay a few people, and there are lots of overhangs from the AFC and PNC in these communities that would take some money and bring a few people there. Not all the people who go there would ever support him. And the numbers are small. If you have to mobilize across the whole of the Essequibo Coast to get 100 people, really, that's not it. And we haven't even gone on the campaign trail to talk about him as yet. We haven't even done that. It's today because of the two statements. That's why I had to respond about the statement from the father and then the statement today from the son about Minister Mustafa. So we know PPP don't worry. APNU might be more worried because from what I gather he said, but it could be the future of a connection between them. We've seen this all happen before in the past.
I'd like to get your attention to Region 10 now. APNU's Regional Chairman, Diron Adams, has made a claim that Venezuelans are occupying and taking over property belonging to Lindeners in Region 10, and that Diron Adams, the Regional Chairman, and that the Guyana Police Force had to intervene. However, the regional commander said there is no such report or occurrence reported to the police. Do you see this as an attempt to spread misinformation and create fear among citizens? And what is your response to such a claim?
So, Diron Adams, you have a lying cabal up in that region. They were part of spreading racism. They campaigned purely on racism. So the racism against the PPP is not having such resonance now. So they have to invent new enemies now of the people. So the Venezuelans are taking up land there now. And as you said before, there's no such report of any such activity. Now, if the Venezuelans are illegally, or anybody from Venezuela illegally occupying state lands, there should be enforcement action, like anywhere else. But what state land are they going to talk about? They gave it out to themselves already, because Lowenfield got the 216 acres. We had to buy land from a private individual to develop the 1,000 house lots for people in Linden. Along the bank of the rivers, the prime land, and in those areas, they gave out to Amanza Walton and her family, the Figueras, a whole range of people, Jordan's neighbors from Georgetown. He didn't see any need to complain about that. And maybe Deron Adams was a beneficiary too of the land grab that took place just before and after the elections up in Linden. So people like that, you don't pay no attention. What are they saying about the resignation of Vanessa Kissoon? Did she actually resign? Was there a fight in Congress place? I saw Amna Ali said that that's so. And then Mai Paul tried to respond, and then Amna Ali skinned him up about his track record in the party. I didn't see him responding again, Mai Paul. But what about that? What about the fight there in the PNC?
One more quick question. Could you comment on the plans for Venezuela to hold elections in Essequibo and the matter that Guyana had filed to the CCJ today, the ICJ today?
What?
There has been a report that Venezuela is planning to hold elections in Essequibo, and could you talk to us about the ICJ filing?
The thing is that you've seen our position on these matters. You've seen the international community come out against it, including CARICOM. So our positions are known. We will pursue this at the ICJ. It's contrary to the provisional rulings of the ICJ. We will continue with all of our partners. We have strong support from the United States State Department. We have it from the UK government, the French government, everyone. They believe, and more importantly from CARICOM, all of our neighbors, that it's not only a breach of that agreement, not the ruling of the ICJ, but the Argyle Agreement. So Venezuela is in a weak position. And the infantile rant by several top officials in Venezuela by calling President Ali Zelensky, I think it's somehow in their warped framework of analysis. They think if they were to do that, that somehow it may change the U.S. long-standing support for Guyana on the border issue. It's such infantile, a childlike, a baby-like rant from some of their top officials.
Good afternoon, Luan Williams, DPI. Sir, first of all, is there a special schedule for public servants who haven't received the $100,000 cash grant?
I don't know, but if there are public servants who haven't received this, I would suggest that you ask the head of your agencies, wherever you are, to make contact with Ashni Singh. He is in charge of that, and let him make contact with Ashni Singh, and that should be easy to do. There was some problems with that, because what happened is that people were registered at their workplace, but they gave their permanent address when they registered. So if you register in Office of the President, but you live in Region 3, then the check may have been sent to Region 3. And so now they have to retrieve the check from Region 3 to get it back to the agency if you want to collect it here at the agency. So there was that problem that we've had. So we will, but if you have details of this, get it to my office or anywhere else, or your permanent secretary, or even the minister, the subject minister, and they can sort this out easily for the public servants. I've seen the numbers, and we've seen a significant number of checks handed over. I want to urge people again, they don't have to rush to encash the check, because there is no time, the 3 days time limit again on the check. And we will continue working to ensure that everyone gets their checks. People call me and said if their relatives went abroad and they can't pick up the checks now, I said to them, the checks would be there when they return home. Don't worry about that. So the bulk of the people have already received checks.
Secondly, questions have been raised over gold programs that are being run by the ISDC and the University of Staffordshire.
Yes.
And some people have expressed concern that the goal is all a scam.
Yes.
What is
Well, it's the APNU that actually said it's false. So just before I came here again, yesterday we spoke to Professor Opadair. Now, Professor Opadair runs this program, the Gold Scholarship Program. He was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana. He comes with a solid academic background. He was at the University of the West Indies before he came here, and we brought him back to run the program. I have great faith in his ability to ensure that our children, not just children, because you have some adults too, our people, they get a good quality education that's not fake. He explained to us, and I think he put out a statement, that there is some disagreement now between the university and the group, that the contracting group. It's ISDC, right? It's ISDC. And because of change in management at the university. He said to me today they have a meeting between the two entities to sort this out. It's not. ISDC is accredited to globally if you go on their website. So today, he said he's awaiting their completion of the meeting in London to know about the way forward. It's not fake, nothing is fake. And he said also it's either they sort out the difference there, which could be sorted out, but if they can't sort it out, he has 2 other universities in the United Kingdom that will accept the grade that people got. They already credit them for work already done. So he has a really strong background in this. He's done a lot of this. I would suggest future to talk to him, because he could be much more knowledgeable about all of these matters. That's why we brought him back to run the program completely, and we have great faith in him. So please deal with that. But I want to assure the people we're not going to leave anybody by the wayside. This has to be resolved to their satisfaction too.
Good afternoon,
Yes, good
Mr. Jagdeo. Milton Granum for Starbuck News. Can you say when the PPP will formally begin the process to name the presidential candidate for the 2025 elections?
Oh, normally we have a process, internal process and stuff like that. I don't want to be premature now. Right, as General Secretary, I don't want to be premature, but from all of the leadership of the party, I think at the presidential level, it's almost a foregone conclusion. It's almost a foregone conclusion that Irfan Ali will be our presidential candidate. As I said before, among all of the people who are contesting, he stands, he towers above them in every area. Academically, he also in terms of track record, in terms of depth of thinking, all of this, and and substance. When you run for president, you have to have substance. You can't be not even, I don't want to be hurtful to people, but really, I'm looking forward to this campaign. I'm looking forward to people mounting the platform and speaking to their supporters. And then you will see what I'm talking about today. Because you can shield people through social media for so long by posting pictures, nice pictures, fancy cars. People like cars and stuff like that. But you can't shield them when you have to talk to people, engage them, talk policy, or go to a press conference. I'm looking forward. I'll be front seat and watching for that. That is. So the party would still have to go through the formal process, but as General Secretary, I talk to people all the time. So I think I know where they're heading in that regard.
Okay, my second question is, can you say what happened to the issue with the GWI workers with regards to the pension plan, and has that issue been resolved, and is their money safe?
I've not followed up on it because it was some time back. It was ages back, and I asked Sheikh Bash to meet with the people to ensure that is sorted. I'll have to check on that. I saw Starbuck News saying that on the IHS market they did not get clarity from the Ministry of GRA. So let me give you clarity on that matter. That is the first audit. The audit, there is no room for engagement on the $214 million. The only thing that the ministry has to do now is to decide how we settle this. Is either through the process, they have a prescribed process in the PSA, you have to go through that process, which could ultimately end up at arbitration. There's no bilateral negotiation anymore on the 240. It's established now that we have differences over $214 million. Exxon asked for more time to submit more documents. We said no. That's it. So I saw earlier in the week there may have been a story along that line.
Same arbitration. Can you say how long will the arbitration period be?
Which one?
With Linseca, and also
okay.
Can you say if the project delivery date is still for this year?
So they have resumed work. So you saw the press release that came out? The press release came out because I promised last week, and I said, you better deliver it before my next press conference. Last week when I came here, I said that the next day we had to make a determination whether we'll go to arbitration or not. Both sides decided to go to arbitration. They also decided. And so the timeline for arbitration can't be determined by us, but it may be an extended period. They have resumed work now. From the press release, you saw that. So there's resumption of work. So we are happy about that to move forward whilst we're arbitrating the differences. So it's premature for me to say that, and whatever we say here could influence the arbitration, because remember they had asked for additional time. If we start acknowledging their timeline as government, then we may very well be harming our own case in the arbitration. So people have to understand the nuances of that. By doing that, we don't want to bolster their case.
Just for clarity, this statement, that's on the first $50 million dispute, and also, can you
but
provide
there
an
were
update?
also some additional things that came up, which as I said before, we can't give the details, but you had issues of the road and the timeliness of the handover of the road, and also the TND.
An update on the second one?
No. I can't provide more than that's why they issued a statement. Because as you recognize, we have to comply with an international process.
Good afternoon, Trishelle Silvers, Ghana Times. Just one question. I know the $100,000 cash grant is ongoing for every Guyanese. However, in Budget 2025, the government had announced a $100,000 cash grant as well for every newborn child of a Guyanese mother. So can you speak to
we have the
that?
numbers. The president told me how many we have already. And so they're going to get it retroactively. Even if they didn't get it, so it would be paid. I don't want to give you the exact date. Let the president, but we discuss it. He is very much aware of how many kids who are born in the year. They'll all get the money.
Is there a way this is being tracked in terms of the rollout? Because, you know, there's public hospitals and kids being born in private hospitals.
But I think, I don't know what the current mechanism is, but it should be easy. If you don't get it at the public hospital, then, or any hospital, you simply go into the ministry. I think it should be done at the ministry's level. So wherever the child is born, all you do, get a birth certificate and go in. And we'll try to do it as quickly as possible, because people may need that help in the first month, you know, to buy things for the baby and stuff like that. So we should try to get it done quickly, like in real time after this period, right? Because the budget was passed even after people became eligible, because it was from 4th of January. So I'm going to press them to try to get it in real time. So like the baby is born the next day, or so the parents can get it, because it would help them.
Do you have a timeline to when government would commence this process?
Oh, that's what I told you, the president and Anong said, but it should be urgent. It should be urgent, yes. So all of just to say, every child born from the 1st of January would be eligible. They're not losing the money. From the day it's launched, then we will try to get it in real time, hopefully, or as close as to the birth of the baby as possible.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo, NASA Williams Sky News. Sir, it was reported that some US $714 million was spent on local content for 2024. My question to you is, can you say, was this verified, and can you assure the public that the majority of the money has gone to local companies and not the middlemen, taking into context that you would have said recently that government would have been doing some investigations to look at these companies that were putting Guyanese companies to front, and then they were middlemen and then getting on to Exxon?
Yeah, so right now, the $700 million that you speak of, I'm happy that it happened. It's a substantial sum of money, nearly $150 billion of procurement opportunities going to Guyanese companies. So there may be, these are all Guyanese companies based on the definition and what they presented, because they got the certificate of local ownership, basically. Or some of them, I can't estimate, some of them may be engaged in policies where the way it's structured, that they're front. So that has to be an ongoing investigation. We've identified a few loopholes that we intend to close when we go back to reform the local content law. Remember, we need to update it all the time. So there are ongoing investigations, but the bulk of the money would be mainly to our local companies, the bulk of it. And we're very pleased that it happened, because it's greater procurement opportunities. That's it. All right. Thank you.